This podcast details true crime cases. It contains adult themes and may contain descriptions of violence. It is not intended for children. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Once Upon a Crime. In this month's series, Resorting to Murder, we've learned that murder never takes a holiday. So far, I've shared crimes that occurred at a resort in Cancun, Mexico, and the tropical island of Bali. In this week's episode, a young woman newly engaged and expecting a baby goes for a morning run in the serene beachfront town of Ceiba, Puerto Rico, and finds herself trapped in a nightmare. Still finding the inner courage to keep her wits about her, the terrified woman's actions would help solve her own murder. This is the last chapter in the series, Resorting to Murder, the murder of Sara Kuszak. Fajardo, Puerto Rico sits in the northeast corner of the island. It is a popular hub for recreational boating and is home to the largest marina in the Caribbean, Puerto del Rey. Fajardo's tropical beauty can be enjoyed on its crescent-shaped Seven Seas beach, which is lined with palm and almond trees. Its gentle breezes make it an ideal spot for sailing, parasailing, and other water sports. Of particular interest to nature lovers is Laguna Grande, one of the only 3 luminescent bays in Puerto Rico. Visitors to Laguna Grande enjoy kayaking and viewing marine life. In the evenings, especially during new moon cycles, a natural phenomenon occurs in which the waters of Laguna Grande are illuminated by millions of microscopic organisms. On Tuesday, February 3, 2009, 35-year-old Sara Kuszak arrived in Fajardo to meet her fiancé, Cesar McIntosh. McIntosh, a boat captain, had been hired by Peter Dooney to sail his yacht, the Minnow, moored at Marina Puerto del Rey. The Minnow was to sail to Tortola, the largest island in the British Virgin Islands, about 219 kilometers away. Sara often sailed with her fiancé and served as the ship's cook. Sara Kuszak was born in San Jose, California on May 18, 1972. She was the youngest daughter of Tom Kuszak and Joan Lang. She had one sister, Anne Marie, and a brother, Jerry. Sara attended public high schools in San Jose before enrolling at Chico State University in Northern California. After graduation, she worked for SBC, a communications company in San Francisco. She lived in San Francisco for several years before meeting Cesar McIntosh while vacationing in Fiji. McIntosh was there for a sailing regatta, and she and the boat captain were immediately drawn to each other. Sara moved across the country to be with Cesar, who was based in Savannah, Georgia. Her mother, Joan, described Sara as precocious, smart, and athletic. Her friends called her adventurous and without fear. She was a fearless explorer, one friend recalled, saying that Sara and McIntosh were ideally suited to each other. Right away, she'd been keen to sail with him, and her skills in the kitchen made her invaluable as a crewmate. She and Cesar were a perfect match, attractive, adventurous, and charismatic. Sara, always athletic, was dedicated to living a healthy lifestyle. As part of her fitness regimen, she was an avid runner, and hardly a day passed that she didn't go for a run, no matter where she was. Sara and Cesar became engaged, and to their delight, Sara soon discovered she was pregnant. They were to be married on March 22nd, choosing Tortola in the British Virgin Islands as their ideal wedding location. Their baby boy was expected to be born in mid-May, at about the same time Sara would celebrate her 36th birthday. Sara had joined the family-friendly YMCA on White Marsh Island in Georgia and worked out there several times a week. She and her fitness coach, Jody Kofod, became close. Jody, who was certified in pre- and postnatal exercise, became Sara's personal trainer. Sara scaled back her vigorous exercise routine with Jody's help and guidance as soon as she discovered she was pregnant. Rather than going on the long runs she was accustomed to, Sara switched to running on an indoor treadmill or attending spin classes to keep her heart rate stable. "I was really proud of her," Jody said. She was just really of a healthy mind and spirit. It was a neat dynamic change. Cheshire was hired to captain the privately owned yacht the Minnow in January and scheduled to set sail in early February. Sara wrapped up details at home in Savannah before joining him in Puerto Rico on February 3rd. Sara arrived on Tuesday night, and on Wednesday morning, she was already inquiring about the best place for a 5-mile run. She asked a marina employee who advised her of a popular and safe route nearby. Sara told her fiancé she was heading out for a run around 9 a.m. He reminded her to take her cell phone just in case. Sara was 5 months pregnant, although with her trim athletic build it hardly showed. Cheshire fussed over Sara during her pregnancy, as any expectant father would. She wasn't familiar yet with the area, and he wanted a backup plan in case she got lost. She could call him or the marina should anything arise, he told Sara. Assuring him that she had her phone and the marina's phone number, Sara kissed him goodbye before starting her run. At 9:10 a.m., an employee at the marina received a frantic text message from Sara Kuszak's phone. She was begging for help, asking them to call 911. Just minutes after starting on her run, she'd been kidnapped from a deserted road and thrown into the trunk of a car. She was locked inside the trunk of a black car and was sending the message on her cell phone from inside it, the text read. Sara then called her fiancé. "Cheshire, I've been kidnapped. I'm in the trunk of a black car," she cried. She ended the call by telling her panicked fiancé, "I'm not going to live through this, Cheshire, I know it." Sara had taken a wrong turn on her run and ended up on a deserted road where she encountered evil. A man was standing beside a car with its trunk open as she ran past. Before she could react, she was grabbed by the man and thrown into the trunk. As the car began to move, Sara kept her wits about her in the dark interior of the trunk. Pulling her cell phone out, she made the emergency text and phone call to both the marina and her fiancé. But as she couldn't see which direction her kidnapper was taking her, she quickly lost hope that help would reach her in time. A deep sense of foreboding must have overtaken her, causing Sara to call her fiancé to say she loved him and tell him goodbye. In mere minutes, she'd gone from a happy woman looking forward to a beautiful wedding and the joy of starting a family to living a nightmare. Just moments after Sara's phone call, Puerto Rico State Police and FBI agents began a large-scale search of the area where she was last seen. They tracked the signal from Sara's cell phone to zero in on her location. Sara Kuszak's body was found an hour later, about 75 feet off the road in a field. She was half naked and her throat had been slashed. The search for her killer continued. Kuszak's phone was still sending a signal, and police continued to track it. Before the day was out, they traced it to a black Chevrolet being driven by a solo male driver. They pulled the car over and ordered the driver out. As they approached, they observed that his clothing was splattered with what appeared to be blood. As they searched the suspect, they found Sara Kuszak's bloody cell phone in his pocket. Inside the car, they also found rope and long blonde hair that matched Sara's. Officer Arsenio Rodriguez asked the man to identify himself. He said his name was Eliezer Marquez Navedo. Asked about the blood on his clothing, Navedo explained it had come from a wounded horse on his brother's farm. He was taken into custody as a suspect in Sara Kuszak's murder. Eliezer Marquez Navedo, age 36, was suspected of the murder of Sara Kuszak. An autopsy revealed that she had been raped before her throat was slashed and her body dumped on the side of the road. Navedo had been in trouble with the law before. At the age of 22, he'd been arrested and tried for a shooting in which a man was killed, but was acquitted of that crime. Navedo, the father of 7 children, was told that the woman whom he was suspected of killing had been 5 months pregnant. He still claimed innocence. On Thursday, February 5th, the day after he was arrested, Navedo was charged with first-degree murder, aggravated kidnapping, and 2 counts of rape, and held on a $2 million bond. He pled not guilty. Prosecutor Francisco Sanchez said there was overwhelming evidence of Nevado's guilt. "Justice is being done for this victim," Sanchez said in a statement to the press. "In this case, there will be no negotiation. He will face the full consequences." Investigators would build a case against Nevado based on evidence found at the crime scene, including a DNA sample they said matched the suspect. On May 19, 2009, just hours before his hearing commenced, Nevado said he wished to plead guilty, surprising his defense attorney, Hector Jimenez. It was a little bit surprising, the attorney said, stating that Nevado barely spoke to him before making his decision. The attorney read the plea before the judge in open court, while Nevado stood expressionless. He'd admitted to raping and killing the mother-to-be, stating that he was unaware she was pregnant. He had observed the blonde woman running on the deserted road and waited by his car until she passed him. He'd quickly grabbed her and forced her into the trunk of his car. She'd had no time to react, but had struggled, leaving behind strands of her hair in the vehicle as evidence. Nevado was sentenced on June 1st to 105 years in prison. He did not face the death penalty, the prosecutor stated, because capital punishment could only be imposed in Puerto Rico, a territory of the United States, for federal crimes. As the prosecutor read statements from Sara Kuszak's family and loved ones, Nevado broke down, crying and biting his lip as he listened to them describe their heartbreaking loss. Sara's mother, Joan Lang, described the terror her daughter must have felt in her final moments. Quote, "She talked to Cheshire and told him she knew she was going to die," Lang stated. "She knew she didn't have a chance with this man. You can just imagine the agony they were both going through to say goodbye to each other." Sara's fiancé asked the judge not to show leniency to her killer. Quote, "There must not be any parole for someone who has in cold blood murdered and desecrated a young pregnant woman. This case should have been double murder with no chance of parole." End quote. After Nevado's sentence was announced, the chief prosecutor, Obdulio Melendez, said the convicted man would not be considered for release before he was 100 years old, because all the charges would run consecutively. What have you been enjoying this summer? Time on the beach, at the pool, or on the road for a nice vacation? Here in California, we've been experiencing an epic heat wave. While I'm not letting it slow down my summer plans, being hot and sweaty often means increased body odor, which can really take away from my fun in the sun. Luckily, wherever I go for summer fun, I can take Lumi Whole Body Deodorant along. Lumi keeps me smelling fresh from pits to feet and everywhere in between. Lumi is clinically proven to control odor everywhere your body makes odor for a full 72 hours, no matter what the temperature is outside. I am in love with this product. I've taken Lumi deodorant wipes along with me to an all-day music festival and in my backpack for a sunset hike. I always make sure to stock my Lumi Cool Cucumber Scented Deodorant Wipes, my very favorite Lumi product. But there are plenty of options to keep you odor-free. Besides tube deodorants, Lumi has cream deodorants, body washes, and cleansing bars. And after many requests, they formulated a new product to keep you smelling fresh and help you stay drier. Lumi Whole Body Deodorant Plus Sweat Control. The same 72-hour odor control, now with 72-hour sweat control. Lumi Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like their mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code ONCE at lumideodorant.com. And if you combine the 15% off with their already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off their starter pack. Use code ONCE for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's code ONCE at lumideodorant.com. Guess what, guys? We're getting closer and closer to traveling together, and I'm so excited. As you may have heard, Trova Trip has given me the opportunity to host trips for you, my listeners, at some fabulous locations. These trips will be planned and coordinated by Trova and chock full of fun activities. And because we'll travel as a group, the cost is super affordable. I've been getting such a great response from you guys that I've unlocked even more itineraries for us to choose from. Here are some examples: hiking through ruins in Peru, culture food and beaches in Bali, rainforest adventure in Costa Rica, a culinary journey in Thailand, and Greek vibes from Athens to Mykonos. Does that sound like dream vacations to you? It sure does to me. So, how can you help? If you haven't yet completed the fun 8-question survey, please click on the link in the show notes and do it right away. The more responses we get, the more itineraries we'll unlock to choose from, and the quicker we'll travel. If you have filled out the survey, ask a friend, coworker, or family member to do so. There's no obligation to travel, and it's so fun to see where everyone wants to go, what kind of activities they'd prefer, etc., and it really helps me out. So far, the top destinations revealed by our survey include Greece, Ireland, and the Greek islands. I can't wait to see what the final selections will be. Click on the link to get to the survey. Thanks so much, and I can't wait to travel with you. When Eliezer Navedo was arrested for the murder of Sara Kuszak, the Puerto Rican newspaper Primera Hora published a story about the case, citing a bizarre coincidence involving a double murder almost 2 decades earlier. When Navedo was just 16, his mother, Inez Navedo, was charged and convicted of the murder of 2 siblings, a boy and a girl, ages 3 and 4. Inez Navedo was accused of a double homicide, which in some respects paralleled her son's crime. On May 3, 1992, Inez Navedo was accused of entering the home of a neighbor with a key she had been lent. Prosecutors said she tried to sexually abuse the little girl before torturing both children who were in their beds by making shallow puncture wounds on their bodies. She was convicted of killing both of them by slashing their throats. The article went on to state that investigators believe Ms. Navedo's children may have been with her when she committed the murders. She confessed to the crime and was given a sentence of 26 years behind bars. Reportedly, the motive for her crime was that Inez Navedo, a known drug user who was HIV positive, had been shunned by the children's family because of her illness. Because she was said to be under the influence of drugs and alcohol at the time of the crime, Ms. Navedo was charged with second-degree murder. She served only 7 years before being paroled for good behavior, although she was required to wear an electronic ankle bracelet as a condition of her release. Investigators in Puerto Rico reopened the investigation into the 1992 murders after hearing rumors that had been circulating for years that it was Eliezer Navedo who was involved or was the one responsible for the crime for which his mother was convicted. His mother had confessed to protect her son, some believed. They now decided it was worth re-examining the case based on the similarities to Sara Kuszak's murder. It was also reported that Navedo was accused of attempting to kidnap a child just a week before Sara's murder. Navedo was interviewed about the murder of the 2 children. However, Police Lieutenant Nelson Torres later reported the investigation had stalled due to lack of evidence. During a time of unimaginable terror, Sara Kuszak was able somehow to find the courage and composure to make the phone calls that helped catch her killer. Her actions in her final terrible moments took a dangerous predator off the streets and perhaps saved others from the same fate. She was the hero of her own tragic story. A memorial service was held for Sara Kuszak in San Jose, California on February 17, 2009. Her obituary read in part, "Her zest for life, outgoing personality, and instant connection to all she met gained friends across the country and abroad. Her culinary skills were unsurpassed to the delight of the passengers and crew of several sailing vessels. One less angel on earth, one more in heaven." Treasure McIntosh released a statement to the press, asking for privacy and time to grieve. Quote, "I am very distraught by the sudden and unforeseen passing of our lovely Sara. She was an exceptional person, and we were looking forward with great joy to the birth of our child." It has been 15 years since Sara's passing. McIntosh is still sailing, He has since married and fathered a child. That will do it for this episode of Once Upon a Crime, and we'll wrap up the series Resorting to Murder. I'll return in 2 weeks with a new series and 3 more true crime cases to share with you in August. Once Upon a Crime is written and produced by me, Esther Sanchez Ludlow. My executive producer is Lorena Garcia, and my researcher is Emma Battaglia. The accompanying videos to each episode of Once Upon a Crime are available on our YouTube channel. As always, thank you for sharing the podcast with others. Until next time, be good to one another.